Welcome to the MORDORK podcast. You may not be able to simply walk into Mordor, but you can simply listen to the MORDORKs.
And we're in a new room.
Yeah, my room this time.
Yeah, we were going to do it on Skype, but one more time, just for old time's sake, in live action. So,
yeah.
Do you like it? You like that map? The map of Russia back there? Or wherever that is?
Moving on.
Carson, do you like news?
Oh, I watch it 24/7.
Yeah, I do too, all the time. News is great.
Newsies is my favorite movie. I love me some young Christian Bale. He was in that, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I think he was.
Who's Christian Bale? Okay, so, speaking of news, that was a weird intro.
Not our weirdest.
Okay, so, Bryan Singer. I think we all know how we all feel about Bryan Singer here, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. Bryan Singer recently, in an interview, said that he thinks that a solo Mystique film would be a good idea, with or without Jennifer Lawrence. He just thinks that the character in general is interesting enough to have her own solo movie. Because, yeah. What do you think of that? What do you think?
I mean, it's kind of the, I could see that, but it's also kind of the thing where she has kind of been the focus of the last 3 X-Men movies, and so a part of me is also like, I'd kind of like to see the spotlight shine on some other characters, so that, because one of our things that we talked about with the X-Men Apocalypse was that we saw them kind of retreading ground that they'd already covered. And I'd kind of be afraid that a Mystique movie would kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I'd be open to it. I mean, I'd still go see it and still try to be optimistic about it. It's just something I'd also just caution the filmmakers to be careful and try to do something really new with it.
Yeah. Now, you've seen X-Men Apocalypse since we last saw it again.
Yeah, and actually my second viewing was much more favorable than the first. Like, just
I wasn't there hating it.
no, it was because, and this has happened to me several times.
Yeah, no.
Where I went into it the second time already knowing what was wrong with it, or what I considered to be wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I had time to kind of just accept that that was part of the movie and that those problems were there.
Yeah, yeah.
And with that acceptance, I was able to focus more on the stuff that they actually did right, and I ended up enjoying it more. I mean, I still wouldn't say it's the greatest movie ever, it's the greatest X-Men movie ever, but my outlook on it the second time was more favorable.
It's the best movie ever.
Like, it's still, like, of the 4 superhero movies that have come out this year, I still put it at number 3, but I enjoyed it more the second time. And
yeah, I still have yet to see it a second time. I'm probably going to go see it tomorrow again, so we'll keep you updated on what we think about that movie, and there we go. That's all I'm going to say. New Flash director for that movie The Flash. That's coming out about that superhero The Flash.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we already have a TV show with him on it.
Yeah, it's not like we have
kidding. I'm totally down with both the TV and movie Flash, because it just means more Flash.
Yeah, I still think it's a weird decision that DC made to not incorporate the TV universe, though.
I can
understand why.
I understand it.
I just think they missed a really good opportunity to make it cool.
I can understand it. I mean, I could also understand how people could be disappointed, but honestly, I kind of think that it may have been the right move.
Well,
I think it may have been the wrong move to, like, limit the TV shows because of the movies.
Right, yeah.
Like they did whenever they made Arrow take out Harley Quinn, even though they had plans for her.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
I mean, I think that was a mistake, and I think that if they continue to interfere with each other, then those will be mistakes. But I think making them separate isn't a big deal. Yeah,
well, then you'll be glad to know that some guy you've never heard of is now the director of that movie.
And what is this guy's name?
Rick Famuyiwa. He directed Dope, and I think something else. I've never seen any of his movies, and I don't really know who he is.
I'm not familiar with him.
But he's the new director, so There we go.
Let's see. You've got a lot to live up to because so far Quicksilver has been killing it in the movies as a speedster.
As far as being fast goes, there's a lot to live up to, like you said. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But something that is a little concerning, I think, is in the interview he gave. He said that the Flash is going to really resonate with young viewers, which could be completely fine, but I always get a little nervous when I hear things like that because it sounds like a corporate entity trying to show that they know what humans like, and they only know what money tells them people like. So I don't know what that means, honestly. That could mean literally anything.
There are multiple ways you could interpret that. One is kind of that corporate answer. The other one is that they're trying to make him a relatable character, which is what the Optimist would say. But often I tend to be the pessimist, so I kind of lean towards it feels more like a corporate answer. But I didn't hear him say that. I didn't see like his facial expression. I never met the man. It was just a
written interview, yeah.
So I don't know how he sounded. So it's kind of hard for me to just say, oh, that sounds like a corporate answer whenever I don't know the guy. I mean, he could be extremely passionate about it and could be making the greatest superhero movie of all time, for all I know.
Yeah, well, look, at this point, the DC universe, the DC cinematic
up to do.
universe, has some things that it needs to work out. And I'm not really as invested as I was before now, really mainly because the DC TV shows are just killing it so much, in my opinion. The season finales for all their shows happened, or finished this last week, it was really good. I thought it was great, both of them. So
I want to be passionate about the movies because I do love DC, but I just don't have faith in them because they haven't done anything to earn my faith. Well, I don't feel like. Because, like, Marvel, at this point, they've had so many successes, and they've proven that they know how to handle their own characters, that I can pretty much go into any Marvel movie.
MCU movie.
Any MCU movie.
Yeah.
Feeling confident that I'm, at worst, going to get an enjoyable 1 or 2 time viewing movie, and at best get a great movie. Yeah. Whereas DC hasn't really proven that to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still kind of spotty on BVS, honestly.
Well, that's okay. I watched a movie last night that I am very spotty about.
Really? What was that?
Yeah, I watched The Hobbit, the extended edition of the first one.
Oh yeah.
And I going back, like it was like that movie. It's just like one scene. I'm just like, yes, that's perfect. That's about as good an adaptation as you can get, and the next thing I'm like, this is horrible, both as like a fan of the source material and just as a moviegoer. This is bad.
Yeah,
and it was like going back and forth. That whole movie goes back and forth for me between those two feelings, but
kind of like the X-Men movies for me.
Yeah, but anyway, we got off on some tangents. What's the next piece of news?
Well, speaking of things that make you really happy, Carson, BVS Extended Edition is now out. But reviewers say it will not change your opinion. But it has a lot of extra stuff in it, so that's got to be good, right?
Well, I mean, to me, like, if an extended edition does change your opinion, that's kind of, to me, a failure on the filmmaker's part.
Right,
that means that they obviously cut something that they shouldn't have cut. Mm-hmm. Unless the extended edition is changing your review for the negative, then obviously the cut. Then obviously they should have kept it cut. Yeah.
I'm interested to rewatch this whole extended edition because it supposedly has a lot of stuff that they weren't actually able to put in, including Barbara Gordon is actually supposed to make an appearance, which we didn't see her at all. So I'm interested to see that, because we're probably going to see her more in the future, in the Batman solo movie and maybe the Justice League movie. So
yeah, I didn't enjoy Batman vs Superman very much, or I didn't view it favorably, but I would like to see the extended edition just out of curiosity. And who knows? Maybe it might change my mind. It won't, but I'm curious. Yeah. And I like extended editions. Yeah. Even when I don't like them, I like seeing them.
Yeah. Maybe we should do like a commentary over that one sometime, because there's a lot to cover in that movie alone, and we haven't actually talked about it.
And also, like, we are both really mixed on it, so
Yeah.
it'd be like, you know, we have good to say and we'd have bad to say.
Yeah, I'll do the good, you do the bad.
No, I mean, I have good things to say about it, too.
Yeah,
I also have bad things to say about it.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Alright, so, again, speaking of the DC Universe, the Justice League movie Part 1 has had 4 possible titles released, or leaked, that we could be actually getting, and could give sort of an insight into what the movies are going to be about. The first one is Justice League United, Justice League Angels and Demons, Justice League Gods Among Us, and Justice League Gods Among Men. So what are your opinions of those titles?
I mean, they're decent. I mean, none of them, like, make me go, ah, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm a little hesitant for the Gods Among Us?
Yeah, Gods Among Us.
Because they had Injustice, the video game,
right,
Injustice
yeah.
Gods Among Us, and in that one, that depicted a dictator Superman who took over the world.
Yeah.
Which, thinking maybe that's what they're going for, because if you're the nightmare that Bruce Wayne has in Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Flash comes back in time and says he was right about him, which is probably Superman. So maybe that's why
they're doing an Injustice sort of thing.
Yeah, but that seems weird for a first Justice League movie. So
well, and they also want to do Apocalypse too. So how are they going to like tie that in? But then we also
Apocalypse is X-Men, but then Darkseid rules the planet of Apocalypse, so that just makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
But it's not spelled like Apocalypse, so.
United had me pretty interested because that's an actual comic book title, Justice League United, which I think there was definitely the New 52 series, and I can't remember if there was one before that or not. But it was basically a series of, it was a new team of Justice League members that I think sprung out of the Justice League of America, and they were kind of like just different, not so much A-lister heroes who were kind of put together. I doubt that has anything to do with this title, but it still is interesting that they chose it at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, Age of Ultron didn't really have anything to do with the Age of Ultron storyline in the comics.
That's true,
and they just both had Ultron in it, so...
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be fine with any of those titles, really.
Yeah.
There's not, like, one that I absolutely love above more than the others, and one that I absolutely hate.
Yeah, Angels and Demons, though, makes me pretty interested. I think that's the one I like the most.
I honestly think it is, too. I think it
sounds
for me,
cooler.
it probably goes that one, then United and Gods Among Us are pretty even. Then underneath that one, Gods Among Men, but they're all pretty equal.
Yeah, so, you know, we could see, who knows what's going to happen. Apparently, as we said before, Ben Affleck is going to be like co-producing this movie and is supposed to have maybe more creative control over it, so DC is clearly trying to sort of edge out Zack Snyder a bit. Or at least that's what I think is going on here, because his last 2 movies haven't done so great.
They've got some mixed reception, and Batman vs. Superman didn't make as much money as they expected at first.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if Man of Steel made as much as they thought it would.
I think Man of Steel made a greater profit overall.
Yeah, but then again, it probably was also cheaper to make.
Well,
and had less advertising.
Yeah, it's true. So it's I don't know. There's a lot to consider there, but
yeah,
I don't know. Well, all right. Last thing I have is I wasn't really going to talk about this because I didn't really think it was that important, but I feel like at this point we would be remiss not to mention it because the internet has just kind of exploded.
Is it Hail Hydra?
Yes. When it comes to comic books, I haven't really been following modern comics from Marvel and DC for a few years, mainly because both comic companies have been making decisions that I don't really know how I feel about. So a few years ago I just kind of decided to just kind of walk away from both of them, and then just maybe a few years from now go back and see what's going on. So I haven't actually read these 2 issues, but this past week Marvel and DC have both had major reveals for 2 new major comics that have been widely anticipated, and they've both been pretty controversial. The first one is DC Rebirth. Have you heard about what all happened in DC Rebirth?
I have not gotten around to all of it, but I know the gist of it.
Well, if you don't want to get spoiled on what DC Rebirth is all about, then go away. But DC Rebirth...
After you like, comment, and subscribe, go away.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, basically, some major things got revealed in this storyline. Things having to do with, for one thing, we got not Bart Allen, Wally West, the Flash from before New 52, comes back, and Barry Allen from the New 52 recognizes him, and they all like, it's like, how did this happen and all that, you know? And this is basically DC's way of like getting rid of the New 52 and kind of taking things from that worked from it back and taking things from that worked from the older continuity and kind of putting it together. They revealed things about like the Joker, how he's supposedly been three people over the course of history, like the 1940s era one, the Killing Joke era one, and then the New 52 Macklemore one.
That's really that was probably the thing that made me most interested, and I'm still not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Whenever they said that they were going to do a big Joker reveal, and they set that up in Justice League with Batman asking who the Joker was. Yeah. I did not expect that to be the response.
No, that was surprising. And then of course they made the whole reveal that and then of course we see the comedian's pin, happy face pin from Watchmen on the ground, and then at the very end it implies that Dr. Manhattan is actually the one who's responsible for creating the New 52 somehow. And all that is just like, what are you guys doing? Like, really? I mean, come on, guys. What's going on here? What's this all about, DC? You can tell us. What are you guys doing?
We don't know. DC... We're making this up as we go along. We've been at this for over 75 years. We don't know. We're out of idea. Like, I'm sorry, people are probably gonna think I'm making fun of DC, but I'm mainly just making a joke.
We don't know what to think about this, honestly. It's what? I'll tell you one thing though. Alan Moore is probably not very happy about it because he hates everything. So the other thing was the big Captain America reveal for Captain America #1. Steve Rogers got brought back as Captain America after being an old man for a while. So yeah. But now he's back, and at the end of the comic, it was revealed that he was a Hydra agent all along.
And people are freaking out about it. The writers have gotten death threats. I mean, it's all over the internet.
Even Chris Evans had a thing to say about it. Like, he texted a meme on Twitter that had him ripping the comic in half from that Age of Ultron scene, and it's like, I guess this is one of those things where it's like, I don't really care that much because it's comics and they're not going to take Captain America and turn him into a Hydra agent forever. I don't care what they do.
I don't understand why people are getting so freaked out because like obviously there's something going on. But my theory and what the people who have been keeping up with everything going on in Marvel right now are saying is mind control is the most likely culprit. But it's comic books, and there's so many other.
Here's the thing, though. The writer tweeted something shortly after that reveal and said that it's not mind control.
He did.
He basically covered every single thing a fan could say is actually happening. He said this is real. It has always been like this. This is who he is now, and that's what bothers people because everything the writer said they were going to say, and he said, nope, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. So really, people are left thinking, well, then what is it? He must actually be a Hydra agent, and if that is true, then you've ruined a great character. But here's the thing. They're not going to do that.
Even if another writer has to come in and
they're going to retcon something. Yeah,
Okay, that's interesting because I hadn't heard about the writer saying that. I've just seen the outcry about it.
But you know what I think is cool about this whole thing is that it's gotten people actually talking about Captain America the comic book, not just the movie. Which, even if it's bad press, it's still press, and that might actually make people interested in reading it again. You know?
I think it also illustrates how far we've come as kind of geeks.
Yeah.
Just how much
as far as
more,
mainstreamness goes.
just how much more geek culture and pop culture are beginning to intersect. I mean, they began to intersect a while ago, but it seems like more and more it's becoming more acceptable, more accepted widely.
Although I do gotta say, I think comic books are like the last nerd thing to be accepted by the general public. You know?
Well, probably one of the last.
One of the last things, you know? So it's still like, keep
like,
it on the down low, maybe, but you know, just like, yeah.
But just, I don't know, I think baby steps.
Yeah. But anyways, so I'm just saying, if to anyone who cares what I think, don't freak out. You know what? Like, Marvel has replaced their own main characters with, you know, the all new, all different thing. You know, and it's like, that's not going to be permanent. They've killed characters off. That's not permanent. This is not going to stay. This is not going to be who Steve Rogers is forever now.
Either the writer has something else up his sleeve.
Yeah.
To use a stupid expression. It's not that stupid of an expression, but either he has some other explanation that nobody has thought of, or more likely he's lying.
Yeah.
Or he's pulling a J.J. Abrams Whitworth.
Yeah,
Says Khan isn't in this movie, and then Khan is in the movie.
Dang it, J.J.
Or I love J.J. Abrams, but but that was not cool to lie. Even though I understand why he did it, I still don't think it's cool.
And we're only one issue into this thing.
Yeah,
you know?
and even if this current writer does mean that Cap is a Hydra agent and always has been, somebody else is going to come along and be like, no, he really was under mind control. It was a clone. It was him from another dimension. Something like that is going to happen.
So, just chill out, guys. And if you don't really care, do what I'm doing and just read other things.
Read a book. Read a different comic book. Read an
older comic book. There's 75 years of history for Captain America comic books. You can read literally any of them, any of the other ones that exist. Okay, well, I think we're done with that. That was a long news segment, mainly because it's all about things that are just super important to us. But as you may know, this year, Jason Bourne is coming back to theaters, and in celebration of that, I guess, we're here to talk about the Bourne movies. Now, I think I said last week that I had never seen a Bourne movie except for the fourth one, so...
Undoubtedly the worst one, in my opinion. Not even close.
So my homework this week was to watch 3 Bourne movies in a row.
I probably should have rewatched them, but I was busy moving, so...
Well, don't worry, guys, because I spent 3 nights watching these movies, and I know everything there is to know about them. So my memory of them will be completely infallible. I'm so hardcore setting myself up to fail. Okay, so, the Bourne Identity came out in 2002, and Carson, in 30 words or less, can you tell me what that movie's about?
Man wakes up, amnesia, tries to find out, past, things explode.
Things explode. Alright, we did it, folks. Again, safe. Yeah, so basically...
Actually, compared to, modern movies, there really isn't that... Is there even an explosion in the first one?
I don't know.
It's been a while.
Speaking of modern movies, this was kind of the action movie that... all other action movies that came after it kind of wanted to be, because it was so different and so new.
I think that there's a reason for that, because I feel like the Bourne series was really smart. I mean, because it had the action and it had the excitement, but it also had the human element in there, because I feel like, even though we've never been in the same situation that Bourne was going through in the movies, we could still see what he was feeling. And it also had a decent plot. It wasn't like the cheesy 80s and 90s movies, action movies, where it's just like, what's an excuse to get this guy with a gun into this place with a bunch of terrorists or something and let him shoot him up? I mean, it was like...
in those 80s and 90s action movies, there's a lot of teeing up for a nice one-liner too. You know, it's like all this stuff happens just for him to say, "Won't you blow off some steam? You got you pushing too many pencils." That's my terrible Schwarzenegger impression.
Arnold Stallone, we love you, but man, those one-liners. So again, I mean, MCU has a lot of little one-liners.
It's true, yeah. I still love that. Because they got you pushing too many pencils, Bennett. We're Duncan. I don't know what his name is. Anyways, yeah. So the casting of Matt Damon was a great choice because he really sells it as this like guy who can like kill you with a pen, but he can also really just kind of sit down and have a nice conversation with you. You know.
I love that scene where he's fighting with the pin because I described that to you a little bit, and I feel and I'm like, as I'm saying the words, I'm like, wow, this sounds really stupid. But then like whenever you watch it, it's like really awesome.
Well, you know, my favorite thing though was he used a rolled up magazine to fight a guy with a knife, and that was the best one. I thought he just was like whacking at him with a magazine. I was like, how useful could that actually be? Like, he's got a knife.
I don't know. I mean, I've got, like, some comic books in the back. We could, like, roll one up like a magazine and just hit you with it.
Yeah, and then I'll stab you with my knife. Anyways,
Actually, can I be the knife guy in this hypothetical? Actually, less than hypothetical.
Yeah.
We're actually talking about Anyway, back to the film.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, it's just a guy who loses his memory, and he's trying to find out who he is. And we find out he's... Oh, by the way, spoilers for all these movies, so don't watch this if you haven't seen them already.
They're over 10. The first one's over 10 years old.
Yeah.
At this point, we feel like the statute of limitations on spoilers has run out.
Yeah, so, you know, whatever. But anyways, long story short, he finds out that, yeah, he's a government agent by, like, he's a CIA agent, but also part of this sort of shady other organization called Treadstone that does other things does these same things where they send out these people, these highly trained assassins basically, and you know does covert black ops missions throughout the world, and he finds out he was the first, and that's actually why he has amnesia, is because he just sort of freaked out on his mission and basically ended up in the ocean, and that's where we find him in the beginning of the movie, which I just want to say is that a really weird opening for this movie about an action guy. He's just a guy floating in the water, and the first like 5 minutes is just him hanging around on a boat. I don't know, I did not expect it to open up that way. Yeah, so I don't know. It was, for the first one, I think that it was pretty good. It feels a little dated, but not not
like
that much.
I really think it's had the first 3 Bourne movies have aged well, and like the first one, like it may have aged a little bit, but I feel like I said, I feel like it's aged well, and especially at the time, like it was completely different from almost everything else. Mm-hmm. Like even like now, I feel like amnesia is like more of a trope, you know, or in storytelling, but I don't even remember that many. I mean, there probably were, but I don't really remember that many stories that involved amnesia.
Yeah, like
back when it came out.
The only one I can think of from back around that time was Memento.
Yeah.
But
they were still 2 very different movies.
Well, yeah, right. But yeah, I think it definitely just kind of struck a chord with people, and obviously it did really well. And the fact that so many things that have come after it have tried to imitate it, you know, is the best possible thing you could say about it, really.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah, somebody said that once. I don't know who it is, though.
Confucius.
Oh, yeah.
No.
It's not? Okay, great.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not.
Hey, all you Confucius fans, is that actually by Confucius? Leave a comment and subscribe below. Yeah, so it was a good start. We have a lot of obviously fight scenes, which I think are choreographed pretty well in this first one, but I think they get better with the next 2 movies as far as fight scenes go. This one's a lot more of a... I feel like the first one has a lot more of a mysterious sort of tone. It's still an action movie, you know, through and through, but I think it has more of a trying to figure something out, and then, like, you know, action on top of that. Whereas the others, I think, are more action oriented. You know?
Yeah, and that makes sense within the story because in this movie he doesn't know anything about his past.
Yeah.
In the other ones, he's learning more about his past, but he still doesn't know. But he still knows something going into them.
Yeah.
And he kind of has a more clear objective in them.
Yeah, these movies are kind of like a road trip of Europe because there's so many different places they go to. Even in the first one, like I think they go to they're like in Spain, in Russia,
Switzerland,
England, and Switzerland, and Germany, or maybe that's the other ones.
We go back to America.
Yeah,
eventually.
America's in there somewhere. Yeah.
Or I mean, but we're talking later in the series.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Just lots of on location things, or maybe it's Toronto. Who knows? But the place where everything in the world is filmed. So yeah, the first Bourne movie, Bourne Identity, did really well. Sequel, Bourne Supremacy, which I want to say the first title, Bourne Identity, I thought was a great title. But Bourne Supremacy? What does that mean?
It means he's supreme. He's better than the other people who are trying to kill him because he doesn't die.
Yeah, so I don't get the supreme thing, but this movie was the first one to be directed by Paul Greengrass, who's going to be directing the new one.
Which, can I just say, well, go ahead. Actually, I'll say this in a second.
Okay, well, yeah, basically, this movie has a lot more. You can definitely tell it's a different director because Paul Greengrass really is into the whole shaky cam thing, especially in fight scenes, or when he's running through a crowded area or driving, or pretty much anything. Actually, he uses shaky cam for. But and a lot of directors have clearly tried to emulate that since then. But I think some have done it better than others.
Can I just you actually set me really up well for what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Generally, I don't like shaky cam. Generally, I feel like it's just used to cover up the fact that they don't know how to choreograph a fight, or to hide the fact that one guy really couldn't take out 10 in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it never bothers me in the Bourne films. I don't know. It's like somehow Paul Greengrass is able to use it well, where I can still tell what's going on, still tell where people are relative to each other and to their environment.
That's important.
I don't know. It just doesn't bother me. It actually works for these films, in my opinion, which is weird because normally I don't like it.
Yeah, it makes the fight scenes, I think, more visceral, more like you're actually in it and you're like, oh crap,
it's, to me, I think that it's not being used to hide the fact that they didn't know how to choreograph the fight. Like, I feel like these would still be solid fight scenes even without the shaky cam. Yeah. And I can still see what's going on despite the shaky cam. So because I still know what's going on, but it is shaking, it does kind of make it feel more like it does actually make it feel like kind of heart pounding and up close to the action. Yeah. Which, once again, is really weird because normally I don't like shaky cam, and I think it's a cheap gimmick a lot of the time. Yeah, well, I think the reason we think that is because so many directors have tried to emulate what this guy did back in 2004. Yeah, that's kind of the sad thing about film and books and really any medium, is that whenever something is successful, people are going to copy it. Yeah. And then that kind of makes the thing that was originally successful seem less revolutionary, or not revolutionary, but less unique and less special because it has so many things copying it. Yeah, I think that's pretty funny. You say that. There's just so many great here's an example of a bunch of pictures of bootlegs and things that have been made of famous things. I said that really weird. What I'm trying to say is, a lot of movies get ripped off, and you'll see things like Turkish Star Wars or something like that, and maybe not necessarily to that extent, but you'll see other things that try to take the popularity from one thing and apply it to itself, and it just almost never works when they go into it thinking that way, So
you can bet, like, around this time, around this early 2000s era, there were a lot of, like, this type of action movies, and I think that was mainly influenced by the Bourne movies. Like, I think the reason that that was such a popular genre back then, and sort of is now, but has a lot, gone down a lot. I think that's because the Bourne movies were so popular and did it so well that so many other movies tried to do it and it didn't work so great,
Yeah. So overall, what were your impressions of Supremacy? Because I feel like talking to other people, like Supremacy is kind of the one where people are like, it's good, but it's the weakest of the original trilogy.
Oh, really? It's interesting to know that, because that's actually what I was going to say. I didn't follow it as well as the other two, I wasn't as clear on it, maybe it's because it was like really late at night, but I think that was definitely, it wasn't bad, but it was definitely the least good of the three. But I still thought it was pretty good, and it definitely made the series go in a different sort of direction, I think.
A direction that I think ultimately paid off with Bourne Ultimatum. But before we move on to that, I just have to say this movie does have one of my favorite moments in the series, where he's talking on the phone, where Bourne is talking on the phone to the CIA. I think it's the CIA. It's been a while since I've seen.
Yeah, it was CIA all the time, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. But he's talking on the phone to the CIA, and he's telling them that he'll only talk to a certain person, and the person is in the room with all the CIA executives, and the person on the phone is like, "What if we can't find her?" And then Bourne just says, "It shouldn't be too hard. She's standing right next to you." And everybody just like has a mini heart attack.
Yeah.
And like looks around, and he's like been watching them the whole time. I don't know. I thought that was
great.
A really cool scene.
Was that?
And also humorous. Too.
Yeah. I think there was a little tiny bit of humor in these movies.
Yeah, like Yeah,
a little bit. It was a pretty much solemn affair for the most part, but there was a little. Yeah. Especially in the first one. I thought the first one had more moments of humor than the other two.
Yeah, but to me that kind of makes sense because of some of the things that happened in the series, I mean, at the beginning of Supremacy, his girlfriend dies. And so I can understand why he's...
downer.
Yeah, why he's not quite as humorous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also like the ending and how in Ultimatum they tie that ending into that story.
Right.
Because, the ending of Supremacy actually takes place almost at the end of Ultimatum.
Like right in the middle, they just all of a sudden redo the whole scene, and it's like, what? Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wait, what's going on here? And, that was weird.
Because it worked. I really liked it, because I felt like it worked in Supremacy, and then it worked even better whenever it was like...
Yeah, like you knew why it was there, Because really, in the context of the Supremacy... he's like in Russia one second and then in America the next second, and you're like, what happened? And then Ultimatum actually fills in the blanks, and that was cool how they kind of connected like that. Before we go on to the next one, I forgot to make you do this before, but go ahead, say what Supremacy is about in 30 words or less.
Bourne's girlfriend gets killed, goes on rampage for revenge.
Perfect. Getting better at this. Soon we'll be down to one word. Alright, so Ultimatum was the one where the biggest stretch had been so far. There was 3 years since 2004, and I remember this movie coming out the most.
I remember this being a big deal.
Yeah, like I knew a lot of people were talking about it. Even my parents, who... I don't even know if they knew they really even watched the other two movies. Like, they were excited about it. So that was weird. But yeah, I remember this movie coming out very clearly. Yeah, tell us what this movie's about in 30 words or less.
Okay, I will describe this movie in 30 words or less.
Okay.
The best one. in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's really a continuation in a lot of ways of Supremacy. They are really connected.
Yeah.
But basically, Bourne is going to pretty much completely collapse the Black Op.
Treadstone?
Yeah.
Treadstone.
There's kind of a new one that's kind of an... Treadstone and it are kind of offshoots of each other. Yeah,
Treadstone sort of becomes a new group called Blackbriar. and they have started up the whole thing again, getting agents out there and, you know, making them all crazy and stuff.
Basically, this movie is Bourne taking down the CIA's illegal covert ops.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's how I'd probably describe it.
Yeah, this movie is kind of like a reunion, or not a reunion, I guess a pre-union of MCU people, future MCU people. I counted at least 3 in this movie. We have Baron Zemo from Civil War, Stick from Daredevil, and...
Holy crap, you're right.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't realize. I forgotten they were in it.
Who was the other one? There was a third one, too. I don't remember who he is. But anyways, yeah, so lots of familiar faces. Yeah, so this movie I thought was pretty good. I thought this was probably the best of the 3.
Obviously, I did too.
Yeah, because I think it really ties up all the loose ends. It satisfies the whole reason for the series, which was good. You know, it's kind of like he returns to where he came from, and he confronts the whole thing. And I thought that really paid off well, because that's kind of been the whole point of this series to begin with.
In the first one, he figures out who he was,
right?
Yeah. And then the rest of the series is kind of him trying to move past what he was, and whenever he can't hide from it, because he tries to hide from it, and then after that fails. In order to move past it, he has to overcome it in a lot of ways, and so that's kind of how I see Supremacy and Ultimatum, as him both opposing what he was and also kind of accepting it.
Yeah. He, Matt Damon's performance in this one is a lot more, I think, subdued than the first 2. Like, he's going for more. I think you think in this movie that Bourne is more like, you know, I guess at peace more. By the end of the movie, at least, you find that out. Because although, like you said, he does in Supremacy, he goes and tries to make a normal life. You still see he's on edge, and you're just like, well, what happened, you know? And you know, in Ultimatum, I think he gets most of his memories back, and he finds out who he was and how all this happened, you know. And I think that was interesting to see, because now you see, well, now he's whole again, and he can be a normal person. So,
but yeah, and I don't know. I feel like the Bourne Identity was a smart movie when it came out, and I feel like the series, the first 3 movies, continued to be smart. Like they had the action and they had the cool moments, but they also still kept like the intrigue, and it wasn't, like I said, it didn't ever devolve into just one-liners or feeling like they were just throwing him into a room with 50 guys just for the sake of throwing him into a room with 50 guys to kill. Like, the action served the plot, and the plot served the action.
Yeah, I thought that worked pretty good. There was this one point in this movie that I thought was really cool, and it kind of harkened back to Supremacy. It was when he was escaping from from basically like the secret lab or whatever, where they kind of brainwashed him and everything.
Near the end?
Yeah, near the end. He was running outside trying to escape everybody, and the one Blackbriar agent who's been tracking him throughout the whole movie comes up to him and like has him at gunpoint. And he's all like, he basically says the same thing that a Treadstone agent in Supremacy told him. He's like, look what they make us do, you know. And he says all that, and then, you know, jumps into like the ocean or something. And I thought that was a cool, like, harken back to that, because now he's made it to where that guy was, you know, kind of like, just, it's not worth it, don't do it anymore. And the guy actually doesn't, he lets him go. Like, the Blackbriar agent, like, you know, puts his gun down, he's like, okay, you can go, you know. Which
could have very easily felt like a really cheesy moment, but it actually works, like, with the way it's shot.
Yeah, I thought it was good. But that jump, man, like, how's he not dead after that? That was like a 20-story jump or something.
He's born.
He's born, yeah. And of course, we don't really get a full resolution at the end as to, you know, what happens, but we basically see him swim off into the distance, and we assume that he's alive and he's fine. He's gonna have a happy life, and everyone's gonna love But that's,
at least until the sequel.
Yeah, that's basically the last we see of Bourne up until this movie. That's coming out this year.
But that wasn't the last of the Bourne movies.
Right. So in I think 2013, 2012, I think it was. It was after Avengers. That's all I know. So it was like 2012. The Bourne Legacy came out, which did. Why did this movie happen? That's I think the question.
I feel like it was living off the success of the others. It was brand recognition.
Right, but it seemed like it had been like too long. You know,
Yeah.
Like, it had only been about 5 years, but still.
It came about during the period after Hollywood began mining old properties for cash, because they're just like, oh, we can just slap a name of something that was popular onto a movie, and then we can make money by people who liked the original.
Yeah, now little known fact is that this movie, the script for this movie, was originally intended to be a Hawkeye solo movie for the MCU, but was then changed to the Bourne Legacy when they found out that Hawkeye is a character in the MCU that no one really cared about at the time.
You're making that.
But yes, Jeremy Renner did get his moment in the sun to be a leading man, one which he has not been. Well, he did have that Huntsman spinoff, so that was good for him.
I like Jeremy Renner as an actor.
Yeah, he's fine.
And honestly, like, before I start ripping into this movie,
yeah,
I do have to say that I liked the initial concept. I liked the basic idea. I like the idea of seeing how Jason Bourne's actions in the other films affects other people, like the other agents.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really interesting concept. I don't feel like this movie took that interesting concept and did anything with it.
They basically just redid Bourne, except with another guy, basically.
I don't even feel like they did that, because Bourne was good.
Yeah.
I actually don't think that this is a good movie. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where I love the Bourne trilogy, the original Bourne trilogy. Now I have to make that distinction.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was really looking forward to this movie. I mean, I wasn't like getting overly hyped, but I was like, I'm excited, and I hope it does well. And I just don't think it did.
Yeah, well, it didn't do well critically. So
I feel like a lot of the first half was really dull and slow. Which is weird, because normally people say the same things about a lot of movies that I enjoy.
Yeah,
but
that can be a good thing.
The thing is, I like slow openings sometimes, whenever they're used well, whenever they're used to establish characters, worlds, whenever they are set up slowly but well, and they have a payoff. I feel like a lot of the setup, or a lot of the opening, wasn't even really set up. It was.
It was more like, ooh, what's going on? Who am I?
It was really. I feel like they could have established the same information in a very short period of time, but it just seems like they dragged it out and dragged it out. And I've seen the movie twice, and both times it was a struggle not to fall asleep during that first half, which, like I said, is really weird, because normally, I am okay with slow starts. Most of the time I like slow starts if they're done well. But I just felt like this movie was too dull.
Yeah.
And it wasn't setting it up. I didn't feel like I was getting to know this character. I'm just going to call him Jeremy, because...
And what was his name?
I don't remember. I didn't feel like I was learning anything about Jeremy or his world or anything. I mean, we were seeing him on a training exercise, which could potentially be interesting, but it was long and not very exciting. And like I said, we weren't learning anything about him or his world that we didn't already know.
The main thing I kind of took away was that it was just kind of like watching a guy pretending to be Jason Bourne, pretty much, because he's just going through the motions, sort of like, who am I? What's going on? What are we doing?
And I don't know, the whole pill thing that increases his intelligence
that was
kind of weird.
It was kind of limitless.
And it was kind of like they couldn't think of a good motivation for him, so they just threw that in there.
Let's make him a super soldier, literally. Give him superpowers, you know.
And I will say there were some moments in the action where it was decent. I kind of like the moments in the fight in the house where I think there's one moment where he's on the bottom floor and he runs outside in order to climb up, in order to run up, get on the roof, and then get into a second story window to flank some guys. Like I said, it's been a while since I watched this because I just don't enjoy this movie, but I thought that was cool. I think the chase scene at the end has some cool moments. But something that really bothers me is that it kind of also sets up another good idea, but now that idea is wasted.
Oh, what was that?
It was that the CIA operative, or the CIA executives who are kind of going down for, that Bourne had brought down in Ultimatum, are going on trial. And they're kind of trying to cover it up, and they're kind of doing it successfully. They're kind of putting doubt on the validity of the evidence and the testimonies against them, which I think is interesting. And they kind of set up that maybe Jeremy might try to counteract that. In a future movie. But now
they were trying to set up a new series.
Yeah, but the thing is, this movie didn't succeed, and so now it kind of, if this is still canon, it indicates that the people that we spent that took Bourne 3 movies to take down weren't actually taken down.
That
they're going to get away with it.
And of course, I think the one thing about this movie that's funny is they do the dreaded callback or call forward, depending on if it's a sequel or a prequel. That's what basically happens when you have a movie that is trying to grab some of the attention that came from a much more successful and better movie, and trying to put in these little Easter eggs, but they actually turn out to be very blatant and obvious, and if they do it a lot, really repetitive Easter eggs, saying oh, there was that one agent that did this one thing too that one time, he was looking for his name, and his name also started with a J, and something like that, and it's come on, we know it's a Jason Bourne movie, so just stop shoving it down our throats subtly. Stop being unsubtly subtle. You find that a lot in superhero movies too, but it was a lot in this movie.
I don't know. I just didn't like I said. I really enjoyed the first 3 Bourne movies, but I feel like this is kind of one of the worst examples of a movie that doesn't need to exist, that only exists to live off the success of what came before it and not to tell its own story. I don't know. I mean, I hate to be so harsh because I don't know the director or the people working on this film, so they could have had the best intentions. He and the director and the producers and everybody could have sat down and thought, how can we make a great movie that people enjoy? And then it just went wrong. So I kind of feel bad for bashing on it, but
you have a lot of integrity towards those poor people. Those poor people who make billions of dollars.
But it just doesn't come across like it was a project of love. It seems like it was...
He could have put his heart and soul into that, and people are crushing it.
You know what I mean.
I know. I think it's just... it's just another example of Hollywood trying to... And of course, literally everything Hollywood does is to make money. That's what they do.
But they
do it better with some things than others.
But here's kind of how I look at it. Obviously, Hollywood is a business. Its ultimate goal is to make money. But there are 2 kind of attitudes that the people making these movies can take. There's the attitude of, how can we make a movie that will take as much money from our audience as possible. Then there's the attitude of, how can we make a product that is good, so good that the audience will want to give us money because they enjoy it. That's kind of how I look at Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I kind of feel like J.J. Abrams and his team loved what they were doing and genuinely wanted to make a great film. I feel like they put themselves into that, and that it was a labor of love in addition to also being a business move.
Yeah.
And because of that, I love the movie, and I was willing to spend money on it and on merchandise related to it and stuff like that. Bourne, I feel like, is that first, or Bourne Legacy, I feel like, is that first attitude where it's like, we want money, how can we make as much money as possible?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't about making something worth earning money, it was just about earning money.
Yeah, like, well, and you can see that with just about everything that comes out now, you know, with all this rehashing of old properties, you know, everything from, like, Jurassic World to Ghostbusters, and then and then you have other things like Star Wars The Force Awakens and redoing Bourne again this year, you know, it's like, they either come out really well made and there's a lot of quality and a lot you can get into it with and you want to see it again. And then there's other things where you see, well, clearly this is just using the name of something that came out before just to get people in, and they don't really care whether people really like it or not.
Like, my view on that is, if you have a good story to tell in a universe that has already been set, and you have the opportunity to tell it. I mean, I'm all for new Jurassic Park and movies. I'm all for new Star Wars movies, as long as they're actually good.
Right, yeah.
As long as... And we as an audience can generally tell what is made to tell a story and entertain us and earn our money, rather than just take our money.
Yeah, I think people can actually tell if you're being sincere when you're making your movie. You know, like, they can tell.
I mean, there might be like one or two. There might be a few exceptions where it's just like, you know, they could be wrong. We can be wrong, but I feel like most of the time we get a pretty clear picture.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest enigmas of this whole concept is the Transformers movies, because they're just there to make to get people in, just from whatever they have to do to get you in, whether it's crappy racist humor, whether it's crazy robots going everywhere.
What are you talking about? That was high quality racist humor. I'm kidding.
You know, it's like, but at the same time, those movies do have a lot to offer. So it's like, those are always the ones I never can really make up my mind about. But yeah, so I think Bourne Legacy was a misstep, definitely.
But it was a misstep in an otherwise great series, in my opinion. Because I really do enjoy the first one. They've got solid action, they've got solid plots, and I feel like Jason Bourne, like, I do feel like he is a defined character.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even though he is that tough character who
doesn't
can
say a lot.
Yeah, he's kind of a quiet, tough, silent type, but I still feel like he's he is a person who has human motivations, human emotions. He's just a person who can also rip your head off.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, he's not like an 80s action movie star where you're like, this isn't a real person. Like, I feel like Jason Bourne is written well enough and portrayed well enough by Matt Damon to actually have those little subtleties that really set him apart from just a character from just somebody who was written to actually being a likable and believable person.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about these movies is that they really did define action movies for a whole, era, really. And
yeah, because I kind of feel like, when did their influence start to lessen? Because I feel like it lasted for a long time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see. I think it's mainly movies have moved away from that whole kind of feel, but it's interesting to see if they'll be able to kind of recapture that with this newest movie.
I'm kind of hesitantly optimistic because Matt Damon did not want to do this without Paul Greengrass because he believed. There are probably multiple reasons, but and then Paul Greengrass finally has come back.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like, since they both weren't hopping on board for a sequel, that there's got to be some reason why they were holding out.
Yeah.
And I hope that was for a good script and a good screenplay and a good story.
Yeah.
They were waiting for a good story to tell in this universe, and now I'm hoping they have it, and they're not just doing Bourne Legacy again, where they're just trying to live off the success of the first three movies, so they actually have a good story to tell in this universe.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's those two coming back is a promising prospect. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Do you remember who directed Bourne Identity?
I don't.
Because I feel bad because that's a good movie too, and I feel bad.
It was the first one, so it's
because where I keep praising Paul Greengrass, and I'm like, who's that other guy? He did well too.
Yeah,
Who is
I don't
he?
know.
Anyway, whoever he is.
If you directed the Bourne Identity, please comment.
You did it. I approve.
And like, comment, and subscribe. So. Alright, well, I think that pretty much wraps up our coverage of the Bourne movies.
Unless you want to rank them.
I will just say, like I said, I've only just seen the first three this week, so it's still kind of new to me, but I definitely think Ultimatum was the best. I think Identity was the second, Supremacy, and then Legacy. Yeah.
I agree completely. That's my list.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
Okay.
I'm not just saying that actually is how I rank them.
Yeah, I think Ultimatum was definitely the best. So, yeah, well, we're going to be there to see the next Bourne movie. What is it just called? Jason Bourne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They stopped doing the Bourne blank.
The Bourne thing. I still don't get Supremacy. That's weird. But or Ultimatum. There was no Ultimatum in that movie. What the heck? What the heck? What the heck?
Sounds cool. They both sound cool.
Yeah. Yeah, alright, well that pretty much wraps up our coverage of the Bourne movies. On to our next segment, which is...
recommendations. Unless you added in another segment that I don't know about.
Nope, it's totally that. Alright, so this week, what have you been doing?
This week, I have been reading...
The visual aid.
Exploring J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit by Professor Corey Olsen.
Wait, what? Oh!
No, it's Professor Corey Olsen's commentary on Professor Tolkien's work.
Oh man.
Anyway,
that's an Inception level hobbiting right there.
Anyway, as we've pointed out in every episode so far, I am a huge fan of the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. Even though I had mixed feelings on the movies based on his work. But anyway, I am a huge fan of the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, and as such, I have read his works quite a bit, and I've also read other people's works commenting on his works. And I honestly don't believe that I have come across a person who understands and has such great insight into Tolkien's universe as Professor Corey Olsen. He's known as the Tolkien Professor. He has his own website. I think it's just TolkienProfessor.com. He has a podcast that I listen to, and he wrote this book, and it is amazing. I always feel like I have either learned a new insight into this universe that I love, which is really weird because I always feel like I have a firm grasp on everything in the universe, and then I find, oh no, wait, there's actually like a whole new level of depth to it.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I either learned something, or I have something confirmed, or I have something that I kind of knew but I didn't know how to put into words, by Professor Olsen. And so if you ever would like to study Tolkien, I highly recommend starting with Professor Olsen. I think that he is great at the commentary, and he is clearly a fan, but he can also think critically. And
that's a pretty big statement there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I really have enjoyed listening to his podcast and reading his work. And so, specifically, if you're interested in The Hobbit, I recommend reading this particular book. It really shows that even Tolkien's, even the simplest of his, what I consider his major works, is still really deep.
Wow. All right. I just want to point out we have an epic lens flare going on right there. Like, that's some J.J. Abrams level stuff right there. All right, I feel like
the sun.
I feel like we're in Star Trek right now. Okay. Well, my recommendation is.
Should we change that?
No, keep it. It's awesome.
Yeah, sorry, the sun is going through my window at a weird angle.
Yeah, the sun is literally blowing up outside. Okay. So my recommendation is to anyone who's been watching The Walking Dead, if you're interested, if you're sad that it's over for this season, if you want to see more Dead, the comic books are actually really good. They're fairly similar to the show, but they do take a lot of different sort of turns, I think they're a great read. So if you're hankering for some more Walking Dead, I am currently on Compendium 3, which they've been making every year they've come out with a new basically collection of like 50 or so issues of the series and put them into these big old books, these big compendiums, and I'm on the third one right now. Which the third one begins around the time that season 6 ends. So if you don't want to spoil yourself about how season 6 ends, don't go ahead and watch that first and then read it. I kind of go back and forth on reading them, so I kind of just I get one thing spoiled by the other, so I don't really care too much. But yeah, so Walking Dead is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's all there is to that. All right, well, that's it for this week. Next week we'll be coming to you from Skype. And Carson, any last words?
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage.
No, you should get some rest. You're looking a little tired there.
How do you know?